So there's a really helpful financial principle I picked up on from an author named Robert Kiyosaki. And though I can't say I'm on board with everything this guy writes about in terms of financial goals and strategies, I do find this one very helpful and pretty easy to understand. For example, if you're familiar with his materials, Kiyosaki talks a lot about the financial goal of getting rich and the practice of leveraging debt as a means of building wealth. Personally, I don't think becoming rich should necessarily be one's underlying motive for stewarding their resources well. I'm also a little uncomfortable with the philosophy of investing on credit as a wealth-building, cash flow-building mechanism. I understand the math behind it and think there's probably a place for what he's talking about, but for the average Joe, I'd push all that discussion to another day. I just throw it out there in the event any of you have read one of his books. But if there's one principle to wrap your mind around, Kiyosaki would say the number one rule is this: you must learn the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets. Most people think they already know the difference between an asset and a liability. As they were taught in the simplest of terms in Economics 101, an asset is something you own, while a liability is something you owe. With that understanding, the money you have in the bank and all the possessions you have piling up around your house are all assets with a certain monetary value. Likewise, the note you're carrying on your car, the mortgage you have on your house, and the balance you still haven't paid off yet on your credit card are all liabilities. That's one way of thinking about assets and liabilities. According to Kiyosaki, though, if that's your definition of an asset and a liability, chances are you're not going to get ahead financially, at least not to any significant degree. A few dollars sitting in your bank and the pile of junk spilling out from your closets don't produce wealth. If anything, they probably hinder your ability to produce wealth. How is that? Well, consider the $1,000 sitting in your savings account. First of all, it is a great thing that you've saved $1,000 or however much you've saved. In fact, I believe everybody really needs to have a cash reserve in the bank, and I can talk more about that another day. But if a savings account is the only place you put your extra money, it does about as much good as a pirate who buries his treasure in the sand on some distant island. All it's doing is sitting there for the day you finally decide to go back and pick it up. Some of it may even start to erode by the gradual tides of inflation. Furthermore, if you think buying more stuff increases your net worth, someday just do the math on how much you're paying or have had to pay to afford the extra square feet to store it all, or the cost of electricity to run it all, or the amount of gas to fuel it all, or the price of repairs to maintain it all, etc. You may not realize it, but much of what you own really owns you, and what you think you paid for once at the store, you're actually still paying for in storage, usage, maintenance, and repairs. Therefore, a better way to think about assets and liabilities isn't to define them in terms of owning and owing, but in terms of gains and losses. Or simply explained, a true asset is something that puts money into your pocket, while a true liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Kiyosaki argues that those who are financially successful, as a general rule, apply their dollars not on liabilities, but on assets. They don't waste the bulk of their paycheck on things that have a draining or costing effect, but on things that have an accumulating or earning effect. By this definition, unless steps can be taken to turn them into money makers, everything you own, including your house, your car, electronics, appliances, furniture, just go down the list, all of those things are more than likely liabilities, assuming they're costing you something to have them. So the key is to turn what you have and where you invest your money into earners. How do you do that? Well, it takes developing the mind of an investor or an entrepreneur. Rather than letting the dollars in the bank collect dust, or at best a few pennies, how can you safely invest them? Instead of treating your home strictly as a home, how can it be used as a small business? Instead of buying more knickknacks to put on the wall, what kind of products or services can you develop to earn an income by? More could be said on various ways of applying this principle, but everyone's situation is different. Suffice it to say, if you can learn to invest your earnings in things that generate their own earnings, you've created assets that build wealth instead of liabilities that drain wealth. The person who can grasp that concept and find ways to implement it, I imagine, will make great progress in their financial situation. So remember the true definition of an asset, the next opportunity you have to spend or save your money. If there's a way to make those dollars make more dollars, you've just discovered the key to building wealth. Remember, a true asset is something that puts money into your pocket, and a true liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Well, I hope this episode has been helpful. Subscribe to our channel for more episodes to come. Until then, thanks for listening, and God bless.